Hi, I'm Phil Sesemann. I'm a marathon runner from Leeds, and I'll be lining up at the Paris Olympics for Team GB.
On today's podcast, a Team GB marathon runner who sprung from seemingly nowhere to notch up 3 top 10 finishes in the past 3 London marathons, and then went on to record the third fastest marathon time ever registered by a British athlete. He's coming in hot, and I say this in the literal sense because you've actually just had a heat acclimation test this morning. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Phil Sesemann's on the podcast. Phil, fantastic to have you here. Thank you so much for taking a bit of time to do this.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. Yeah, really pleased that we can do it.
I mean, you are kind of coming into the Olympics metaphorically hot in terms of your form, but you have you are cooling down as we speak. Just explain to us exactly what a heat acclimation test involves.
So we've had with the idea that Paris in August, the race is going to be pretty hot. Like summer marathon, need to be prepared to race in hot temperatures, even though it's starting at 8 a.m. It's going to be a lot warmer than kind of the winter races that I've been doing in Spain. So working with the team at Leeds Beckett at Carnegie School for Sport, like their applied physiology, we kind of came up with a bit of a protocol for a heat acclimation camp. So what that actually meant was kind of over a course of 10 days, I did 8 stimuluses, and today was the last one this morning when we do a little test at the end. What that means is kind of a core temperature thermometer, tracking me. I get on a treadmill. We run kind of 4-minute stages starting at 14 kilometers an hour and getting up to 20 today. And then we just track like how I'm feeling, and we're in a lab that's at 40 degrees. So my core body temperature got up to like 39.8 degrees, lost about 2 liters of sweat during the 45 minutes that I was on there for. And then, it kind of takes a few hours afterwards to kind of cool back down and kind of feel a little bit more normal.
Are you feeling normal now?
Yeah, I am now.
Are you regular? Do I need to get you a Calpol weight
No,
if you've got a little bit
good.
too high with your temperature?
Yeah,
you're going to be all right. That sounds like hell, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, it is, to be honest. The first one was 10 days ago, and that one was hell. Kind of, I could only get to 19 kilometers an hour. I got 2 stages further, kind of heart rates were lower, lactates were lower. So we saw a lot of really good improvement just from the kind of this 8 stimulus protocol. So really pleased with how that's gone, and physiologists were happy, coaches happy. I'm really happy with it. But yeah, it definitely wasn't easy.
Now, this would explain whilst you're our only athlete so far not to have chosen to have a cup of tea before we start the podcast, because quite frankly, the last thing you want right now is anything to potentially warm you up even further.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's all right then.
Good.
Look, Phil, your journey is fascinating. I can't wait to get into this and for everyone to hear about your journey. And most of these podcasts that we've done have had a pretty obvious timeline from like a sporty kid to competing and everything in between. And yours is slightly different just insofar as there's a change in your sporting discipline that came later on in your career. The fact that you've been working as a part-time doctor throughout a lot of your competitive exploits and your training. So it's difficult to know where best to start with your journey. So I thought rather than me trying to work that out, I'd just ask you, where is the best place, would you say, to start with your journey? Where do you pinpoint the start of that back to?
I mean, it's probably back to like 10 years old when I actually started doing running races, and probably 11, 12 years old going down to my local club in southeast London, Blackheath and Bromley, and just starting my running kind of career then, and just loving my running the whole time through kind of my teenage years and through school, and having some semi-good results, but also some terrible ones as well, and just not being able to maintain any kind of consistency. So for me, that was kind of where my running started, and where I really like gained that love for it, and did believe that I had some talent, like I had some physical talent that I could kind of do well at. And I think like most people when they get to university, kind of I wanted to experience that side of things and that social life and those experiences. So when I came to Leeds in 2011, I kind of parked the running for a year and just said like, let's just leave that and
let's go on the Otley run.
Yeah, do a few Otley runs and just spend great time in halls up in Headingley, and just really kind of embrace kind of that university lifestyle for a year or so, and ski trips, Camp America, just as much as I could really, but always with the intention that I was going to come back in my second year and start training again. And at that time I thought I was going to try and be a triathlete, tried to hook up with the the Brownies, tried to kind of get involved in that Leeds Triathlon Centre, and spent kind of 8-9 months doing that, and saw my running start to take off again. And I thought, actually, this running bit's, this is the good bit. This is the one that I really enjoy. So I thought I'd park the triathlon and just give it a really good go in the running since then.
Yeah, and of course you've been based here in Leeds since you moved here for university, originally from London, and you started off doing shorter distances, but a lot of people now will only just assume like you do marathons, you do the long distances, and that's what you're going to be doing in Paris this summer. But it wasn't that to start with. It was the shorter distances. And by the way, when I say short, the kind of distances that would make most people go, yeah, not for me, but short in the context of a marathon, for example.
Yeah, much shorter. So I was doing 800s and 1500s and the odd 5,000 meter race. So kind of a 2-minute race, a 45-minute race, and then kind of a 14-minute race. So very, very different to running for over 2 hours. The training's very different, and kind of the approach was very different. And it was just, for me, that was what I was enjoying. I was having relatively good success. I was improving each year, and I was just really enjoying kind of racing 1500s and trying to go to the British champs and failing, but each year getting a little bit closer at getting into the final, and just really enjoying kind of just doing those domestic races throughout the UK, and becoming known as an all right 1500 meter runner.
Just out of interest, at that point, does any part of you think that an Olympics is going to be part of this journey or part of this dream? Is that something as a young kid, when you said you were loving your running, you thought to yourself, I'd love to have an Olympic medal, you know, as you might do as a kid? Or is it something you were just enjoying and you've eventually ended up in this situation where you're going to be racing in Paris?
To be honest, no. Like I'm definitely an optimist at heart, but I'm also a bit of a realist, and I just always kind of saw where I was finishing in races and just saw where I was nationally, and always just thought like, yeah, like you're pretty good, and I think you could get better. But I never really felt that I was ever going to be in the top 3 Brits at a 1 in every 4-year event kind of thing. Like that's really hard to make. And obviously you dream and you daydream of, oh yeah, maybe one day I'll be that good. But I never truly believed that was like something I was working towards and something that was going to happen. And yeah, so it's a pretty crazy feeling to think.
And that's interesting as well, because some professional elite sports people speak to will say, I had that from a young age.
Yeah.
That was the goal. That was the dream. That was my determination. I know I can do this. It's interesting to hear you honestly sort of say, well, I knew I was pretty good.
Yeah.
But not necessarily, in some ways, you've, in that respect, outdone some of that early ambition.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I've got a lot further than I ever thought I was going to get. Even like 2 years ago, I didn't truly believe I was going to make the Olympics. I kind of thought, oh, well, even to be honest, last summer, I thought, yeah, I'm aiming for the Olympics, but I didn't truly believe I was going to actually get there. I just tried to be as confident as possible and attack the training as much as I could and just see how far I could push it. And yeah, it's great that it's kind of pulled off.
Does that belief grow then with everything that goes the way you want it to? If you start before saying, well, I'll aim for it and see what happens, that has happened. That must do wonders for your own self-belief.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you keep training, you keep improving. Suddenly, like, you just move the goalposts just like a little bit further on, and you just think, oh, well, this is going all right. Like, I wonder where I can get to next. And yeah, you get greater times, your times come down, the training gets better. Each time, like, you do a training block, you're suddenly running better splits. Haven't been injured in quite a long time, touch wood. So yeah, you just feel like, well, I can keep getting better here. So yeah, why do I need to like limit it at the moment?
And one of the things we've always said about doing this podcast is the Paris Olympics is really interesting because it's such a short distance. You know, you can go all over the world for Olympic Games. And actually, yeah, I think you're the only person on this podcast, the only athlete that's now traveling further, because you would have been in London if you hadn't moved to Leeds. But you've gone a bit further away to do your 381 miles from Leeds to Paris. Yeah. But that journey, not the trip itself, but that journey beforehand is a journey of years and years of work and hard work and determination. And for you, the thing I found so fascinating, and people might not realize, you know, for a lot of this period until recently, you were working as a junior doctor, you were doing that part-time, you chose to do that part-time, and
Yeah.
take that pay cut, I guess, take the hours cut so that you could pursue this as well. But balancing those two things, what is effectively, probably even if you're doing it as part-time, must feel like a full-time job. Doing something like that, that's astonishing to have to counterbalance the two things.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't easy at times. I'm really lucky. Like, I love my running. Like, I really enjoy it. I'm so passionate about it. So for me, it never really felt like work, and it was never like I was looking at it like this has to pay off at one day. I have to get financial reward from this. It has to be my career. It was always just this thing that I just loved doing more than anything else. And so I was just more than happy to keep prioritizing that and have that come first over potentially a medical career or other things. And it just meant that when I was kind of applying for jobs and I said, I wanted to go part-time, and I was doing all right at the running at that point. I was still improving, which is the most important thing. I was still enjoying it. And I just thought that if I can keep prioritizing this, then I can just continue doing this. And it's what makes me happy. So it's what I wanted to keep doing.
And that's probably for now certainly on pause, if not maybe for. I mean, it's a lot of medical studies to do to then put on pause, isn't it? It's like a lot of work you've done.
Yeah, a few people ask that, and there's a little bit of like a sunk cost fallacy, isn't it? There was 6 years that went into that at university, like 2 degrees, and worked hard, and definitely those final years of school to kind of get towards that was hard work as well. But yeah, I enjoy this so much that if I can kind of make a job out of this, then I think this is the way I'm going to go.
It seems to be doing all right. I mean,
it's all right for now.
At the moment.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that you were doing shorter distances and then you sort of pivoted to marathon only 3 years ago. And we'll talk about some of your success at the London Marathons, your moment with Mo. We'll definitely get into that and qualifying, of course, which has been an incredible journey in itself. But I just wanted to read you something that I read, and I don't know whether this to you rings true. Because when I read it, I was like, it's a really harsh sentence that was a description of your middle distance, your sort of middle distance running. Well, it's more than middle distance running, but you're running. And it said, Sesemann was famous throughout the athletics community for starting a track season in strong form and frequently falling apart and fading out by August, resulting in lackluster performances. And I know that you'd said that you've already sort of said you had seasons that were going well and then not quite as well. I really thought that is a really harsh description of someone's athletics. Is that unfair?
That's not unfair, but my friend Michael Salter would be very pleased that you brought that up. That was him who edited the Wikipedia page.
Oh, is that who's put that on there? So that's you being done over by one of your mates.
Yeah,
got you. Yeah. Okay, fine.
And I was sat having pizza with my parents and my sister, and she says, "Oh, your Wikipedia page is really funny." And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, that bit about you kind of being a bit lackluster at the end of a season. And I was like, so I checked this and I send it to him and he's howling and all the boys and he's like, I've waited 6 months for someone to notice that. And I was like, it's a really good, like, slow burner joke. So
this is great. So what's your mate's name again?
Michael Salter.
He's going to be, I mean, fair play to him. A little sort of a small ripple of applause there for Michael. So in terms of the wording of that, a little bit harsh. Now we know why. It's written by one of your mates. You didn't feel like you wanted to edit it back to something a little bit more.
I just thought I'd leave it. Yeah. And I think some of my colleagues at work, I think it said he's a frequent NHS doctor, and they changed that to infrequent NHS doctor, just to be more accurate. But also, they thought that was a bit of fun. And
okay, good, because I thought that was a bit of a harsh description to discuss that. You did, though, decide to pivot to marathon. Your coach, who suggested, this could be a good idea, and it's working out pretty well. And there'll be lots of people listening to this who are really keen runners and have done marathons or are building up to marathons. And as an individual sport, when I look at your Instagram feed and the work that you put in, it does look super grueling. Yeah,
it can be. It's a lot of running, and yes, there is the odd days where you don't want to go out and run, and maybe Monday 2 days ago when you get hailed on mid-run and you just have to keep training and you just know that you need to do that to get the work done. But at the end of the day, like my job is to go out and either go to the track and run a bit faster or go down to the Leeds Liverpool towpath and run with my dogs. Like it's a very good job, and I'm not going to complain too much about that.
You mentioned your dogs. Well, I mean, the dogs are really centre stage. Let's be honest with you. They've got their own Get a lot of love on social media to the dogs. Hailey Gabriselesi, obviously, winner of 2 10,000 meter Olympic golds.
Yeah.
And Kipchoge after Eliud Kipchoge, winner of the last 2 Olympic golds at marathons, also known affectionately as the mileage mutts.
Yes.
That you've got. They're with you on, I mean, a huge amount of your training. However many miles you're doing, they're doing a big chunk of those as well.
Yeah, so they do anything that's not fast. They do all the easy runs, which is probably 70% of the work, really. Maybe 60, 70%, depending on the week. But they kind of come out and kind of varied enthusiasm between the two. Hailey's a lot more kind of similar to me and just wants to get out, and Kipchoge kind of has to be forced off the sofa most days, to be honest.
It seems to be enjoying it when they're there. There's something in that as well, isn't it? That you're there training. The dogs are just there because they're just frolicking around and running and just actually enjoying clocking up the miles, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're enjoying it, and it definitely helps you relax a little bit. You're just thinking like, well, even if I feel rubbish today, like at least I'm running along with my dogs and they're having a nice time as well.
Dogs have been a big feature with a lot of athletes that we've spoken to on the podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of you have dogs. I don't know whether there's a thing in that, but it is interesting. I don't know whether it's because a lot of you are away from home quite a lot in terms of competing and training, and actually there's that home comfort of the dog when you're back. There is something about having the dog alongside you. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of the athletes we've spoken to all seem to have dogs that they like really love.
Yeah. For me, it's just a big thing. Like I'm doing all this training. I'm at home quite a lot when I'm resting, I'm recovering. So you like having that company. And I'm really fortunate that my partner kind of pulls up the slack when I'm away on training camps and stuff. Because it's pretty challenging for her when you've got these 2 dogs who are used to 90 miles of running per week, and then suddenly I go away and she's stuck with them just bouncing off the walls kind of thing. Like when are we going running? When are we doing this? And it's quite hard work.
Their ability to swallow sausages whole somewhere is quite an impressive thing as well.
It's not good. I think it's just like a resource guarding thing. They're just worried that the other one might steal it, so they just go straight for it, and then 1 or 2 times they chuck it up and it's in 2 pieces and that's it. It's not good.
I guess the amazing thing in terms of running is being here in Leeds in this location. The scenery on the doorstep and the places you can go to run. I mean, it's like no other. And anyone's not been on your Instagram, go and have a look, because some of the videos you put up there are the places that you're running, albeit sometimes in very unforgiving weather, especially when you get a little bit higher. But it's just gorgeous around here, isn't it? Yeah,
we're really fortunate. Just where we are. Like the more serious I've got with my running, the more I've had to just be a bit more strict with where I run, and pretty much now it's like the canal towpath, the track, York Selby cycle path. That's pretty much it, really.
And is that because of, I mean, sometimes it's over a lot of rougher terrain, say up in the Pennines or whatever. Is that, or into the Dales, is that not to risk injury, to turn your ankle, for example?
Yeah, partly it's that, partly it's just optimizing the training so that there's less time away and I'm more kind of set with what I'm planning to do, flatter surface, back home sooner for like rest and recovery. Part of it's also because Hailey's just not that very well behaved. So it's just a lot easier when you're like somewhere that you just know, and you know that she's not going to run off and get hit by a car or bother other people or get in people's way. So
misbehaving dog is really the determining factor of where you can and can't train.
Yeah, when I had just Kipchoge, like she was fine. Like she wouldn't go off and chase sheep, and she'd be fine, like out in a farmer's field, and you'd be all right. But Hailey's not like that, so I just avoid those situations.
It is, and you sort of said this already, but just a lot of running. I mean, you are getting in so many miles.
Yeah.
Is it boring at any point? I don't mean that in a funny way. I know you said it's your job. Of course, it's your job to do that. But I mean it insofar as, the routes that you're on, there's a lot of repetition there. Is it a bit Groundhog Day from time to time? Here we go again. Is it just a case of sometimes it is just about clocking off the miles and getting them done? Or does it not feel like that at all?
Honestly, it doesn't feel like that at all. I've had a friend stay with me for 3 weeks for a little camp, and he's just gone home, and he found like we just go and do the same route every single day. Just go to the canal, turn left, work our way up onto the canal, go along and turn around when we need to, out and back every single time. And I think he got a little bit bored of it. And when I wasn't here, he would go off and train somewhere else and just do something different. Whereas for me, I feel like you need to push past that Groundhog Day feeling. And once you kind of push past it, you kind of get really used to it, and then it becomes a comfort, and then you actually really look forward to it. So for me, I'm quite happy just doing the same thing every day.
I guess from a kind of technical point of view, from your training, you know, if you're doing the same route, you know exactly where you're at in terms of your time, in terms of your pacing and that kind of thing. Is that sort of a benefit to doing that?
Yeah, there's bits of that, but mainly the only things I'm worried about with time is when I'm over doing marathon specific stuff over in York, or if I'm on the track and doing faster running. But the stuff that when I'm at home and I'm just running easy running on the canal towpath, it doesn't really matter. It's almost like a switch off. Like it doesn't require any conscious effort just to go out, run 10K. I just know where I'm turning around. I know where the bins are that I can drop the dog poo bags. I know just what I need to do. And it just takes any stress and any pressure away. So it just makes things comfortable.
Down in Meanwood as well, I know you hashtag a lot of your stories and stuff with Meanwood Training Camp. There's a sort of a team of you there, really. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that and where it is that you're training and that training ethos, because it's not just you, is there? There's a team of like-minded people who are together and in it and for the love of it.
Yeah, so I used to live down in Meanwood, so I lived there for 5 years. So that's where that was kind of born out of, and a lot of my training then was on the Meanwood Valley Trail through Meanwood Park, and just lovely running, really nice. And then
be a total mud bath this year.
Yeah,
the way it's been,
yeah, really bad. Like, yeah, you end up running because you still try and run the same distance, so you'll be out running an extra 10-15 minutes like on each of your runs because it's just so slow doing it. And then there was a few other guys. There was Linton Taylor, who came third at the National Cross Country Championships. There's Emil Caress, who hopefully is going to secure his Olympic berth this weekend at London Marathon, who all lived close by. And for me, it was very much a thing of, I want to have that training camp mentality, but at home. I want to just be all in on my training and make sure that I'm doing everything I can, rather than have this kind of, you just kind of tick it off and just do the training, and then when you go away on training camps you're really zoned in. But at the time I was going through my kind of final year of medical school, and then I was working, so I couldn't go away on training camps all the time. I didn't have the kind of privilege that I do now to be able to do that, and the luxury. So I had to kind of really embrace what I was doing at home, and I feel like other people kind of got on board with that, and they saw that as well. And it's almost now kind of grown a little bit where people have come to Leeds to do their training camps rather than just going away and going abroad, and if they're living elsewhere they see Leeds as a place to come and just really put some heavy work in.
So we're talking about the fact that you were doing certain distances, and then your coach was, do you know what, maybe we should be doing longer distances here, and that's really when everything is just up the ante, I think is probably the best way to put it, in terms of success, in terms of profile, in terms of you being able to do this full time.
Yeah.
It's just changed everything for you. And it's kind of nuts how that happened, insofar as, for those that don't know, it was not that long before the London Marathon 2021 where you decided to give the marathon thing a go, and you'd really not done much in the build up to that in terms of marathon distance.
Yeah.
And then you go and do that on your birthday, 29th birthday, October, and you get 7th place. You're the fastest Brit to finish.
Yeah.
That's totally nuts.
Yeah, it was a big day. It was a pretty good one. I'd built up to trying to do a marathon the year before, or earlier in that year for the Olympic trials for Tokyo. They were hosting kind of this secluded event during COVID, but I couldn't get into it. I'd never done a half marathon or a marathon competitively, so they just wouldn't accept me. And they just kind of said, they had a clause in the selection policy for qualifying for that as to whether they felt that you were like an actual legit team prospect, and they just said, no, you're not. So
I think maybe they've been on your Wikipedia page, and
potentially.
your mate's edit hadn't helped you. I think that's what it was.
Maybe not. So I looked at that and I said, okay, well, I'll do a track season again. And actually then I was in the shape of my life, but just racing rubbish, and got a little bit ill before British Championships, and just thought, you know what, I need like a little reset here. And we kind of looked at the calendar, and it's 17 weeks until London Marathon. I said, that's enough. Like, let's do that. And yeah, attacked it, like no altitude training that I've used for all the other marathons, and just really went for it with training here and over in York, and it really went well at the training. And so kind of went into that marathon kind of with a lot of confidence, and knowing that there'd been an Olympics 2 months before. So your best British runners will have raced at the Olympics. So then there's this opportunity for kind of your next level guys to kind of have that big day, have their 15 minutes of fame. And I was
2 hours, 10 minutes of fame.
That's true. Well, it was 2 hours 12 for me that day. Yeah. So I was actually a little bit disappointed with the time that day. I felt like my training suggested maybe I could have done a little bit better, but that's a little bit of marathon inexperience. And also kind of, I don't think there's anyone who finishes a marathon and says, well, that was way better than I expected it to go. So it was a really good day, and it kind of really has kind of catapulted kind of this next stage in my life and career, really.
I mean, you've been quite humble about it in terms of people have raced at Tokyo and next level tier, whatever. I mean, it was pretty outstanding, and it sort of started voices talking about you being a real prospect in terms of going forward, didn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it definitely, it did get the ball rolling, and I knew from my training that there was more time I could take off. Like, since that day and where I'm running now, I've taken just under 5 minutes off at the marathon in 6 marathons. But I wouldn't say that my training has progressed by that much in fitness. I just got better at racing marathons. My training has progressed. I am fitter, but I'm just getting a lot closer to my kind of what I feel is my training potential in races now.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's not just about times, is it? When you get into racing marathons, not just for time's sake, but to try and win them or compete or get the highest position that you can do. There's more to it than that, which I guess you learn as you do them.
Yeah, definitely. There's the fueling, there's the tactical side of things. Like, I know when I'm going to the London Marathon, I want to be the first Brit, or I want to be right up there in the British field. So I need to be looking at what the other Brits are doing. I need to be understanding how fit they are, what I'm capable of doing, and then working out with pace groups. Like, I don't want to be stuck in between pace groups, but then I don't want to be not running what I'm capable of doing, and again, not going off too hard. So there's a little bit to think about and stuff. And fortunately, kind of the last few races have been actually a little bit clearer, because it's just been run 2:08:10. That's what you need to run to go to the Olympics. So I've just been able to kind of dial into that pace and just hold on as long as possible.
Yeah, and we'll come into those qualifications in a moment. Is there a bit of you don't strike me as a kind of look back with regrets kind of person. Is there a bit of you that thinks, I wish I'd pivoted a little bit earlier?
No, not at all. I think I feel like we did it at the right time, when my training was going well enough, when I'd built up those years and years of mileage and training volume. I'd got that robustness in my body. So I think that's a really big thing. Like, I've stepped up, and then I've been able to handle the training, and then I've been able to increase the training, and I haven't broken down with injuries, touch wood, and nothing like that's happened. Whereas I see a lot of athletes, and I see it in Leeds in my training group, and with lots of other runners, that there isn't a patience. There's people want immediacy. They want the results this year or next year. They're always targeting the next race. Whereas these guys are like 20 years old, 21 years old. Like, I didn't kind of run a marathon until I was 29. I'm going to the Olympics at 31. Like, it takes a long time. So you just have to be patient and let it happen.
I know that at that point, like I say, things start picking up. You know, you're an Adidas athlete now. That happened at the start of 2022.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the back of that success, and that allows you the opportunity to get that funding in place to go and take it as a full-time job, effectively. I was also really interested in you talking about just marathon running in general. And like I said, there'll be a lot of people who are probably putting in a lot more than 17 weeks preparation to go and do a marathon. I'm not going to be anywhere near the kind of time that you're running, but people who do it because they want to achieve something, because they want to set themselves a goal that they can do it first and foremost. Yeah. And there's something that you'd said about after the European Marathon in Munich, which I know was a warm day, and you finished 17th in there, and I think you described it as a humbling second half of the run because of the heat. And the thing that many maybe people always talk about is hitting a wall or whatever mile that might be at for people. But you said 1 mile you're zoned in, barely breathing, and the pace feels effortless. And then out of nowhere, the legs ache, they feel heavy, as does your breathing. I mean, even for an elite athlete like yourself, you know, it must give people some hope that that happens to you as well. You get that moment where it's like, wow, it was all going fine, and now suddenly this is a lot harder than it was.
Yeah, it can get really rough. Like sometimes, especially if you're on like a pace group and then suddenly you get dropped off and suddenly that gap just grows and grows and grows and the head drops, and kind of mentality is a really important thing when you're racing. And if you're feeling good and you're telling yourself that you're feeling good, it helps you feel good, and it helps you kind of like smiling when you're running makes a big difference. Like it's proven. So once your head drops and you start to kind of give yourself excuses, or you start bargaining with yourself that maybe I'll do a bit less today, or I'll run a bit slower than I plan to, and that's fine, then actually it just gets harder because you're mentally not as on it as you were. And then it's just this perpetual cycle of just things get harder, you back off a bit more, it gets even more harder, and you start thinking like, why do I feel so crap? So there's definitely like a big part of it that's like that.
Do you have like techniques? What if you start feeling like you're drifting, say mid-race, into this is starting to be a bit of a struggle? I mean, Johnny Brownlee said on the podcast, he said that athletes are the best at lying to themselves.
Yeah.
To get them through a moment. Oh no, I'll get to this next bit and I'll be fine. In the back of your mind, maybe knowing I'm struggling here, but we'll continuously tell these sort of little things just to keep you going. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you do kind of try and relax, try and smile. Really simple, like think about just that 1 mile that you're in and just hope that you might feel better. Because sometimes when you're training, like you might be doing a 40k hard long run, and the first 20 feels a lot harder than the second 20. And that doesn't make any physiological sense. But psychologically, it's because you're running at quite a hard pace. You've already ran, say, 10k. So you're a bit tired already, and you're just thinking, Jesus, I've got another 29 to go. Like I'm absolutely knackered here. How am I going to do that? But once you get into that second half, and once you get into the final 10k, you can kind of sniff the finish, and it just gives you a little bit of boost. It just relaxes you a bit, and you can just push it a little bit more. So yeah, definitely in a race, you just have to kind of know that, okay, this might be a rough mile, but maybe in 5k time, I might feel a lot better. So just get through this one, and hopefully I'll be all right.
It is amazing to think that you can put in the hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years of training, that actually so much of it is still in here. You know, it's in your head. It's how you deal with those situations. It's not the work you put in gets you there.
Yeah.
But then there's that psychological side that, from a sports person's point of view, that you also need to be able to achieve.
Yeah, it's huge, definitely. Like your race day specifically, like how you're going to kind of deal with the pain, how you're going to deal with like when things get difficult. Like I work with a psychologist, and we think about lots of things like during a race, and the first half, embrace it, enjoy it. And then the second half, like it sounds really superficial, but money is a really good motivator in a very short burst. So it's not something that you can just use as like, that's going to motivate me for a year of training. But if I'm at 5k to go, I've got 15 and a half minutes, maybe less, and it really hurts. And at that point you tell me, okay, well, this position is worth this much. This position is worth this much. It actually is just a really kind of simple way of just like, okay, well, yeah, I can push a little bit harder for that amount of money. And whereas if you try and think a little bit too deeply, some people like to think of the tough moments they've gone through and the people who inspire them. That requires quite a lot of cognition at that moment. And you don't have that in the final 15 minutes of a marathon. You're absolutely spent physically and mentally. So just thinking about something simple, like a certain amount of money actually can really help. So for me, the last few marathons, I've always thought about Olympic rings tattoo. And that to me symbolized kind of everything that I've wanted to do. That symbolized all this training, trying to make it to the Olympics and get there. But trying to think about all of that in one go is too much. So for me, it's just tattoo. That was it. And that was like, yeah, I feel like those kind of side of things is having those little tools can really help.
I like the honesty, by the way, because I suspect that there's a much higher proportion of athletes who probably think exactly what you've just said there, but wouldn't verbalize it.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, for a small thing, well, if I just try a little bit harder, I can increase the bank account a little bit. I get that. I get that. But I don't think there's many that would necessarily say it. But it's true, as like you say, as a short term kind of, let's get over this next hurdle. It's whatever works for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, you look at the person who's in front of you and you think, well, that's $3,000. Like that, if I beat him in this race, that's $3,000. Like, and that's a really simple, easy motivator. It's not something, I'm not sat at home all night, like when I'm planning my training and when I'm going out every day thinking I'm doing this for the money and I'm doing this for profile or anything like that. Because I don't think those kind of extrinsic motivators can do you long-term like any good. But definitely in that exact moment, that's a really simple, easy, like, yep, $3,000, like, get him kind of thing.
Him, you, I'm coming for you. And as you sail past, he's going, I've just lost $3,000.
Yeah, potentially.
Coming the other way around. The Olympics tattoo that you've had in your mind, have you got that yet then?
No.
Are you going to wait until afterwards?
Yeah, you got to. That's just jinxing.
You can't go in with it. It's a bit.
Yeah, well, what if you get
big
injured?
bird if you go in with it?
Yeah, something could happen. So you just have to, just keep it down and hopefully everything goes all right and you have a good experience and then, maybe get it afterwards.
So that's for one when you're back in Leeds?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, any good tattoo artists get in contact and, I don't know any in Leeds at the moment.
We'll get you fixed up. Don't worry about that.
Brilliant.
Your other London marathons, I mean, you've had 3 top 10 finishes, which is really extraordinary, fantastic. 10th place in 2022. You got yourself another PB, and you can see it going in the right direction. And then 2023, last year, 8th place, second Brit behind Emil, who we're hoping is going to qualify as well. And then out-kicking Mo Farah at the end of Mo Farah's final marathon. Now, obviously it's sport and your race is your race and Mo Farah's race is Mo Farah's race. But I am thinking at that point, ballsy move.
Yeah. No, you got to give it a go, haven't you? Yeah, 100%. And like, he doesn't want to race and get gifted stuff. And have you not give it everything? And I did feel for him a little bit because I watched the video back from like the whole race and there's a lot of camera time on him and he's gone out pretty quickly and then dropped off his pace. And that's a tough way to run a marathon. Like physically, he was probably fitter that day because I wouldn't have been able to go out at that pace and hold on as well as he did. I just ran pretty much perfect even splits and it just turned out that, he was 3 seconds, 4 seconds behind me. So, I did feel for him a little bit, but obviously you're in a race and like you say, like $3,000, like I'm going for it.
You see, he's lost his motivation for that now. He probably doesn't need it quite as much. But in terms of Mo Farah, it's not like a changing of the guard thing, but obviously a guy coming to the end of his career who's achieved so much and has been an inspiration for so many people. I'm sure for yourself, in the distances that you've run over the years. But just to have that moment at the end of his career and you kind of up and coming in your marathon career must have felt pretty special, actually. It must have been like quite a nice moment for you to think, I'm on this journey and, one of the all-time greats is beside me and I'm out kicking him here.
Yeah, to be honest, it was definitely one of those ones where they kind of put you on a golf cart afterwards and whisper you off just a few hundred meters down to the elite athlete tent where you just recover a bit, get changed. And I'm just sat on the back of there thinking, well, that's gone well, isn't it? That was all right. Like pretty content with yourself. Like you're really knackered and stuff. And it was great to know that my friend Emil had got the Olympic qualifying time and He'd got my Leeds City club record, and he'd sixth place that day. But yeah, just knowing that had happened and thinking, and to be honest, when it's happening, like maybe a mile to go, I can see I'm catching him, and I'm thinking, God, this is going to be pretty close, this. And you've got 5 minutes to think at that point. And it did pop in my head, I was like, this probably looks really good on telly. This does. So, like, better give it some, definitely. So yeah, no, it was an amazing moment, and the crowds down the embankment, because they're just cheering him, and then they see there's someone else behind just catching him, and just the kind of atmosphere there was just amazing.
You use that word moment, and actually careers and sporting careers are about moments.
Yeah.
And to have those moments, that is a moment that people remember. That, from your profile point of view, that's what a lot of people were talking about at the end, because that was all about Mo Farah, that race in many ways.
Yeah.
And actually you had that moment there, which in many ways was one of the things why people were saying your name so much.
Yeah, no, they are these big moments, and I do feel like I've been quite fortunate to have like one or two that have kind of gone my way quite nicely. Kind of earlier in the year, last year, before outkicking Mo Farah, I outkicked Jake Whiteman over a 3,000 meters indoors, and he was the reigning 1,500 meter world champ. So that one was quite a big moment as well. And yeah, it was the sharpest I'm ever going to be in training, and probably the bluntest he's ever going to be given the time of year. But yeah, still one that I'll take. And they mean a lot, and they're the ones that you look back on and think, oh, that's gone all right, that has.
And it's probably worth saying as well, because we're sat here face to face, and this is a podcast, so people are listening, but you're recounting those with like really big smile on your face.
Yeah. I think I do. I feel really lucky, but I also believe you make your own luck, and I've put 2 decades, but definitely a very serious last decade of training in, and feel like I'm seeing the fruits of that now.
You definitely are. Let's talk a bit about the road to Paris and how it's gone, because for anyone who doesn't know, the qualifying time, 2 hours and 8 minutes and 10 seconds. You went to Valencia in December to hopefully go and do it, and you missed out by 38 seconds, which must have been excruciating. I mean, all right, 38 seconds isn't nothing, but it's not an insurmountable amount of time. So close to getting it. At what point during that run did you think, I think I'm not going to get this, or was it very much towards the end?
Probably around like 32k. I just felt like I'd been suffering with some cramping issues for like the previous 5k, and I just thought, oh, you know what, like I'm falling off pace here, and I can see my group, which were running at the Olympic standard pace, they were just moving away from me, like maybe half of the group or 10, 15 of them were just getting away. And I was just thinking, I can't go with that. Like every time I push, I'm cramping. And then when the cramp goes away, I'm still knackered, and I just haven't got the energy to do it. And there was a moment with like 5k to go. I think I worked out I had to run 15 minutes, and that's 3-minute Ks. And I thought, oh, come on, you can do it. And then it was like a 3:06 for the next one. And I was like, if I can't do that in that K, there's no way I'm doing it for another 4, even faster. So, it was quite tough kind of running down that kind of final kind of 4k, like knowing that my goal that I wanted wasn't happening, but I was still on for a good time, and I still needed to kind of get everything out of the race that I could have. So I still kind of pushed, and like I kind of said earlier, like there's the bit where your head does drop a little bit, and then actually it gets harder because you're just like knackered, and you haven't got the mental strength as well to keep pushing. And so I think I ended up like missing it by 38 seconds in the end, which was quite a bit more than kind of I expected to.
It's not the end of the opportunities as we know, because you'd go on to qualify, but there must be a point there where you're thinking, oh, Jesus, all this hard work and it's kind of slipping away.
Yeah, the worst bit is you're knackered and you're in quite a lot of pain. And all I'm thinking is, I've got to do another one of these in 10 weeks. Like I had my back up, and I really wanted to get it done in Valencia at the start of December and enjoy Christmas and just spend a bit of time with family and just relax a little bit, and then just go into the year just a little bit more relaxed. And just not knowing at 5K to go, like it's not happening. Like you've got another one of these in 10 weeks. And it kind of took a few days for me to change the mindset from like, you have to do another one to I get to do another one. Like I really like racing marathons. I get to go to these big cities and go around these closed roads and people are cheering, and I'm competing with some of the best athletes in the world. And yeah, I'm really fortunate to get to do that. But when you're at 5K to go at the worst bit, you forget about the good bits and you're absolutely knackered and don't want to do it anymore.
And of course, like it's not, you wouldn't choose to do marathons so quickly, one after the other. That's not normally what you do. There'd be a good break in between doing them. This isn't, we'll go out and do one a month kind of thing. This is you do it, you get it done, and then you can focus on getting ready for the summer. But there you are with 10 weeks to go until the marathon in Seville, and you got to sort of pick yourself up and go again, which included going to Kenya, right?
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. I remember finishing London Marathon last year, and I hadn't got the time for the World Championship in the summer for Budapest. And I was a bit gutted. I was like, I can't believe I've missed that. And I would have got an invite from World Athletics, but British Athletics weren't taking any invites. And I remember just thinking like, and saying to Emil and to my coach, like, I'm a bit gutted about that. And Emil was like, yeah, but I think if you had got that, then you would have just performed again at the same level that you are at. And again, in the winter, you probably would have performed again at the same level because you're not giving it enough time. And he just said, but I think you not getting that means you'll probably go Olympics now. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, I think if you put 8 months of work in, like you can get your time down in Valencia or Seville and get that. And yeah, it proved to be right. And yeah, that gap between Valencia and kind of having a week easy and then training pretty hard through December, through the rubbish weather and the really short days was quite tough. And yeah, fortunately getting out to Kenya was kind of, okay, let's really kind of nail it now for 4 weeks, and hopefully that can be the difference between the Valencia performance and the Seville one.
6 seconds inside the time.
Yeah.
2 hours, 8 minutes, 4 seconds, 6 little seconds inside the Olympic qualifying time that you needed to get.
Yeah, that was rough, to be honest. That final 3K was absolute hell.
Take us into it.
I actually, throughout the race, I felt pretty good. And I got to like 30K and I was like, God, 12K to go here. Like I feel better than I did in some of my long runs in Kenya when it was 12K to go. So like, I think I can do this. And we got to maybe 37K and my group started to break up. And I saw maybe 4 or 5 guys feeling strong. And I was having flashbacks to Valencia and seeing those guys go up the road. And they were the guys who ran the time that day in Valencia. So I knew then, like, these are the 5 guys in this group of 30, 40 who are running the time today. So you have to go with them. There's no other option. You can't pick it up in the final 2Ks. It's them or nothing. So I went with them and I was like, oh, you know what? I feel good here. Like 5K to go. Like, I think I'm going to do this. And I knew we were like pretty much dead on pace. But I could just feel myself just picking up ever so slightly, and I thought, yeah, this is going to happen. But kind of like anyone, yeah, you get a little bit overzealous, just a little bit too close to the end, and suddenly that final 3K, 2K was just absolute hell. I was just trying to pick up the pace. My watch is telling me that I'm slowing. I was working out what I need is 302.2 per kilometre to run 2:08.10 to run the qualifying time. So every time I go for a kilometre point, I'm looking at my watch and I'm timesing it by 2 at the kilometre point, and that's telling me that I'm either above or below pace kind of thing with the 302. And I'm going through these final ones and I'm starting to add on the decimal as well, the 0.2, because I'm not on pace. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be so close. And because I couldn't pick up, I genuinely had these visions of missing it by like 1 or 2 seconds. And it was just this like horrible feeling of, I'm going to have to do London Marathon. Like I'm going to have to do another one in 9 weeks. Like that's going to be really, really hard. And I just kind of willed myself to just everything you've got, like don't leave anything. And I came round the final straight and the clock was at kind of 2:07:50 by the time that I could kind of work out what the clock was saying, but then it wasn't ticking over. And I thought, well, I'm not 20 seconds away, but it's frozen, so I don't really know what it's on. And then it said 2:07:54 and it froze again. and it finally unfroze just as I was coming underneath it, and it was like 2803, 2804. And I just, honestly, I just like kind of hit the floor almost immediately and just couldn't believe it. Just kind of lay there like welled up quite a bit, and just couldn't believe that I'd actually managed to do it after kind of how tough the training camp was in Kenya, and then how tough that kind of final 3K was.
That's amazing to hear. You look like you're just running. You're doing like a little maths GCSE in your head as you're going along there, aren't you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it gave me something to think about, something to do. And I'm just working it out the whole time. Like, oh man, like I've got to do this. Like, I've got to be on pace and just make sure I don't mess up by missing it by a second or two.
Now, before we started recording this podcast today, we were just having a little chat, and we were chatting about Seville and getting the time, and we were chatting about running shoes as well.
Yeah.
And then you showed me a picture of your running shoes at the end of that marathon that you qualified for the Olympics with. And I think it's fair to say the decision to go without socks on that day, talk us through that, because I'm not going to lie to you, those shoes are a sight that I'll never be able to unsee.
Yeah, no, that was a terrible decision, to be really honest. I mean, it paid off, obviously. But yeah, the blisters were terrible, and the new Adidas shoes that I got hold of, they're really hard to get a pair, even for an Adidas sponsored athlete. And they could only get me a size 9, and those shoes I come up in a 9.5. They're a bit too tight. So I just thought, you know what? I'll just go without socks. Like, we'll just see what happens. Like, because even just thin socks, it was just a bit too tight, and I didn't want to be uncomfortable. Obviously I didn't think about how bad the blisters were going to get, and they were horrendous. Yeah, the blood was kind of covered all over the toes, and then both heels which kind of just shredded with like congealed and clotted blood on them. So they will be going in a box one day and proudly on display as just this kind of nice symbolism of everything I went through to kind of get there and get to the Olympics. And
is that pain is something that you're able to kind of park whilst you're in it, and something that you realise afterwards, geez, this is painful?
Yeah, pretty much. You can definitely feel it during the race, but you're not going to give up on your Olympic qualifying attempt just because of a blister.
You're playing it down. We'll get the picture. We'll get the picture and we'll show it. Third fastest British marathon runner of all time. What do you feel when I say that sentence to you?
It's a bit of disbelief, to be honest. Like we have the shoes nowadays, the carbon shoes. So like I'm very aware that I am the third fastest British marathon runner of all time, but I'm not the third best. There's a big difference between that, I think. So yeah, John Brown's finished fourth at 2 Olympic marathons. Like he's a better marathon runner than I am. He's done far more than I ever did. But I have ran faster just because nowadays we've got the shoes, and that does make a difference. But yeah, it's a weird feeling, to be honest. Every now and again you do have a little think of, it's like 60, 70 million people in the UK, and maybe 50, 60 years of people being pretty competitive at marathons and running pretty quickly, and 2 of them have run quicker, which is a bit of a weird feeling.
I've noticed 2 kind of recurring themes as we've been talking today. So I'll run them both past you, and then you can tell me whether I'm totally wrong or whether there's a bit in it. I've noticed 2 recurring themes. One is a determination not to let setbacks hold you back. So whether that be, and as much as we were joking earlier about it, some of your other distances where you hadn't managed to complete seasons in the way that you wanted to, or whether it be not making that first time and then, right, we'll go again and we'll do that, or whether it's the balancing of working and studies whilst running, and also not being funded in perhaps the way you are now, being with Adidas, but not letting those things set you back. That's the first thing. Is that something that you hear and you think, yeah, that does sound like me?
Yeah, I agree with that. I've said it before, like I love this. Like I really like the training and I really like the running, and I think that's probably like my main talent. Obviously there's some physical talent there, but the fact that I can just keep doing this, and when I have bad results, which happen all the time, like it doesn't always go well, I'm just able to just go out the next day and just keep training and just do my full training the next week. And I don't throw my toys out the pram. I just keep being consistent, and that's why kind of after 10 years of training, I've been able to keep progressing, and I still am progressing. I do truly believe that. So yeah, whilst they're like setbacks and they do bother you, it's fortunate that kind of I really love this. So I'm quite happy just to go out the door the next day and kind of get on with it.
All right, second thing then. Very self-deprecating. I feel like you don't take compliments easily about your standard and your ability and what you want to do. But also from that moment when you were talking about being younger, it wasn't necessarily I'm gonna go and do that. It kind of happened in that way. But also the, like I say, self-deprecating nature of, well, yeah, third fastest, but other people are better marathon runners than me. Or It's interesting to hear, because when I speak to someone like you with the clear talent and ability that obviously you have to be going to an Olympics, it's interesting to then hear that other side, and also hear the person that won't let setbacks hold you back and is determined and goes out there and gruelingly puts himself through that last 3K in Seville to make sure that that dream doesn't go, because he's been thinking Olympic tattoo in his head for however long it is.
Yeah.
But yet there's that other side that maybe doesn't fully allow you to accept that. I don't know. You tell me.
I do think there is a bit of that, and there's one, not wanting to like. I'm really fortunate I get to do this, but I also know that it's like a privilege that I've got this talent, this physical talent, to have enabled me to be able to put the work in and progress to this level. I've had opportunities being in Leeds. I've had opportunities like help from family in order to be able to reach this level. So kind of always just knowing that, you kind of, if you kind of boast too much about what you've achieved, like there is other people who could have done what you've done, but they just didn't get those opportunities. So just being like respectful about that and not kind of being too boastful with it. And then there's also probably a part of me that's kind of didn't truly believe I was going to reach this level. I remember going to the European Champs 2 years ago in Munich and kind of sitting around like the British team, and there's 90 people there on the British team, all different events, athletics. And especially kind of the distance runners, they're the ones that I know really well. The 1500 meter guys, the 800, 5000, 10,000. And like looking at all of them and always thinking like, well, they're all better athletes than me. They're all much better athletes. Like I'm not as good as those 10,000 guys. I'm not as good as those 5,000 guys. Because I know that if I try to race them at 5,000 and 10,000, they'd batter me. So I kind of had this like inferiority complex of, they're better runners. So it's taken a little bit of time to kind of slightly shift that to, well, actually I've got really good at marathon running now. Like that's where my kind of talent and skill is. I think it's just because I did do years of training at those shorter distances. So I kind of feel like I can match up and say, well, it's clear they are better. It's not like I'm comparing to like discus throwers or shot putters. Those guys are clearly going to be a lot better than me at that. But it's guys that I have actually raced against and been beaten by. So I've always just felt like I'm like, at that point, there was no part of me that thought, actually, some of you would be sat at home in 2 summers' time and I'll be going to the Olympics in Paris. It was always just like, oh yeah, these are the quicker guys, and I'm at that kind of level below still. It's taken a little bit of adjusting to kind of realise that actually, no, I'm getting to that level now, really.
We've asked all our athletes to bring in something with them that means something to them. Now, you didn't bring a bag with you, and your pockets look quite empty, so I'm worried whether you have done or not. Have you brought something with?
I have, yeah.
You have. Do you know what? As I was getting there, I was like, has he remembered to bring something in? But here we go.
Yeah, so I have a little award here. This is for DOS AC, which is the alumni athletics club or cross-country club for Leeds University Cross-Country Society. And I was awarded this. It was Sports Performance of the Year 2022. So I think that was for my first London Marathon performance. And it was just kind of I feel like it's a nice crossover between kind of keeping the running fun, but also the professional side of things. Like I'm at this high kind of level performance now where I'm performance of the year, and I didn't get too involved with the cross country club while I was at university because I was in it for the performance rather than just the social. So it's always just that little reminder of like that's the side of things that you're doing in your running, but also just to kind of remember that this is fun, and this is kind of, there's lots of great relationships that you form while you're doing the running, and just something that I enjoy a lot.
It's a sweet little. It's only small. It's yellow. The little guy's arms are up in the air.
Yeah.
It looks a bit like is that old kids TV program? Was it Morph in it or whatever?
Yeah.
Like it's been made out of plasticine or something like that.
It does.
It's got a little medal around its neck.
Yeah. Yeah, so we, a few of us, of my Leeds City teammates, we did the West Highland Way last year, the weekend after the London Marathon, which was great fun. 96 miles of running from Glasgow up to Fort William.
I mean, it's great fun for some people.
Yeah.
Not for everyone.
Not for everyone, yeah. So, and it was something that we spoke about doing for a while, and a terrible idea for me because it just buggered my knees, and these guys can run down the hills and drop like stones, and I'm really careful, risk adverse, don't want to injure myself, and it just buggered my ITBs. But we just packed as light as possible, like one phone charger between three of you, like a tiny little travel toothbrush, like everything is minimal as possible because you're carrying everything. And we got 30 miles in on the first day, and I was getting a hat on my bag, and I found that the lads had snuck this into my bag. It always just reminds me of just always keep it fun, mess around a little bit, but also just keep the performances going.
Final thing is a little section of the podcast where I have merged the word athlete and Leeds to create athletes.
Nice.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. So these are just little few things about the city, and obviously you came here a little bit later for studying, but things about the city that you love that I think lots of people listening will be like, oh yeah, I like that place too as well. So for you, best place in the city centre?
Oh, you know what? I don't actually go into the city centre that much.
Too busy running down the canal, mate.
Yeah. We don't go there that too often. Where did we go the other night? Dry Dock. Yeah, Dry Dock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good memories.
Uni days. Place you go for headspace?
I'd say Leeds Liverpool Canal, towpath. Yeah, definitely.
Your foodie haven?
I like Sunrise Bakery up at
Chapel Allerton?
No, is it Sunrise? Slow Rise Bakery.
Oh, I was going to say because Sunrise Bakery, I'm sure is in.
Yes, that is
Chapel
lovely
Allerton
as well. Yeah, but New Road.
There's no point saying that now, mate. You've picked the other one. Damage is done.
Slow Rise Bakery. Yeah, it's just a bagel shop. I just go in there and I get my bagels in Horsforth on New Road side.
Okay. Yeah. Leeds music scene?
Not involved. No.
Scrap.
Yeah, I apologise.
Move on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great.
We need to bring the music to you on the canal. I think that's what we need.
That'd be good
to motivate you through. Do you go and see any sort of Leeds sporting teams or anything like that?
Not really. No.
Just focus on the
just focus on the running. Yeah.
Okay. Your out of the city spot that you like.
Malham Cove. Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's only an hour away, and definitely worth kind of a little drive out, and especially in the winter when it's just dead quiet.
Leeds sporting hero.
It'll probably be Rob Burrows. Yeah, just everything you see about that and you read about and see, it's the way it's kind of inspired like a whole city and then gone national. It's just massive, really. And
the marathon now, in Leeds.
Yeah, it's just huge. So definitely kind of, because you see that and you just think, well, that could be me. Like that could be me, and you just think there's no way I would have that attitude and courageous kind of attitude, just ongoing through all of that.
Yeah, good shout. Finally, a Leeds place that holds a great memory for you.
Ooh. Yeah, probably just up at Leeds Beckett track. Just putting the work in all over years for a decade now, and just love it up there.
I mean, your love for what you do is so evident, like it shines through in everything that you say. And I guess, just very quickly, you can't really do what you're doing unless you love doing it, right?
No, definitely not. Yeah, you can't go out and run 120 mile a week, 130 mile a week, unless you really enjoy it. If you did, you're just not going to do it for very long.
Okay, final one, mate, is, we're really not far from Paris now. You're going to have training between now. You're going to cover a lot of miles, as we know.
Yeah.
People will be able to look out for you now on the canal, going up and down. You're going to line up there, all being well, fitness, all fine. You're going to line up there to run the marathon in Paris. What's going to be going through your head, and how's that going to feel on the start line?
Yeah, it's going to be wicked. I can't wait. Just be there, like knowing I've put in years and years of work for this. I've got lots of people heading out to watch, and a lot of people have been involved in my running career and helped me, supported me along the way. So it's just going to feel really special to know that, I'm doing it for them as well, and they're going to be pretty proud at that moment as well.
And have you set a target for it? Is it a time target? Is it a placing target? What is that going into it? Bearing in mind that you keep telling us that you've overachieved what you've expected to do in many ways in your career. So to not sell yourself short in what you might be able to achieve this summer.
I think it's definitely a position target. It's a championship race, so time irrelevant, doesn't matter at all. It's also going to be hot, and it's also going to be really hilly. So we went out and looked at the course a few weeks ago, and it's definitely not one for fast times. Leeds Marathon, if I was in the country, would actually be a really good one to prep with it, or Leeds Half Marathon, just with the hills.
Bit of pull bank.
Yeah, honestly, it's just like running on there, really. So it's definitely going to be a tough one. I'm going to be around 75th, 70th ranked going in out of a field of 80. But I honestly believe like somewhere around the top 20 is like a realistic goal. There's a lot of people will be swinging for top 10, top 5 medals. And when that doesn't happen for them, they won't just kind of keep it going for 15th, 16th place. They'll just bin it off. And it gives opportunities for an athlete like myself to kind of really pick people off and finish much, much higher than my ranking going in. So I think that's, around what I reckon I can do.
It's been so nice chatting with you, honestly. Your story's awesome. And we're all going to be feeling super proud watching you when you get there in Paris. The only thing left to do is to open the communication channels. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes, how to get in touch with you if a Leeds tattooist is listening right now and wants to. That's quite the job. That's quite the pressure, getting those circles exactly right. Where are you going to put it on your, is it bicep?
I'm not sure yet. Yeah, maybe ribs or maybe even shoulder blade kind of thing. I haven't decided yet.
All right. If that's you, get in touch.
Yes, please.
Mate, great speaking to you. All the best.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.